Okay, so I'm going to have a really quick look at the public schools, 19th century public schools with you. We spoke about the 19th century public schools, and when we did it in class, I spoke to you about the three stages of development through the public schools. All we need to know for your spec is how the public schools at the start and the mid to late 19th century promoted and organised sports, promoted ethics through sport. We need to know about the cult of athleticism and the spread and export of sports. Now, this is super easy for you. Start off with them, we'll take promotion and organisation. So, obviously, take both of them. How is it promoted to the boys and how is it organised? So, I always think, what would it look like if I was watching it? So, at the start of the 19th century, we know that the masters had no involvement with the boys, that obviously that life was really brutal for the boys. There was loads of bullying and fagging. And as I said to you, sport reflects society. Well, sport in the public schools is going to be impacted by the society and the environment in which they live. So it's the exact same principle. So the boys' lives were really violent, really brutal. There was bullying and fagging, which was widespread. The masters inflicted corporal punishments. They had little to no interest in the boys outside of the classroom. There was nobody really taking care of these boys, very little pastoral support, if any, for the boys. And that was therefore reflected in their sport. Their sports, if we were to have a little look at them, were disorganised. They were organised by the boys for the boys. Now, we're talking here at the start of the 19th century. So we're talking, if you think about it, just at the end of pre-industrial Britain. So in pre-industrial Britain, we talked about how the sports had unwritten rules, they were locally coded. So what you're seeing here in the public schools was the boys would bring their sport that they've done in their villages from home to the schools. So in Eton or Harrow or Rugby or Charterhouse, all the boys would come from different areas, and each school then put the rules into what we call the first melting pot and established a set of rules. So all the schools would have played things differently. So they played rugby at rugby. At Harrow, they played Harrow football. At Eton, they had the wall game. And they were just organised by the boys for the boys. No master involvement. They ranged from childlike to barbaric. So they'd be doing things like hoops and marbles. And then they would be bare knuckle boxing and playing ferocious mob football games. Sports here, you'll note, that are not identified or in pre-industrial Britain as being pursued by the upper classes, but obviously these are young boys. They've watched the sport that are done at home, and they've mimicked them as children do. There was no headmaster support for the sport, no maths involvement, I've already said. However, as we move towards the mid to late 19th century, the mid I always think about as being a stage two. We know that we had the introduction of Dr. Thomas Arnold, and it was the stage I called social control. Dr. Thomas Arnold wanted to control the behaviour of the boys, and he used sport as a vehicle for achieving social control. So Dr. Thomas Arnold introduced we've seen the introduction, of the house system. Dr. Thomas Arnold used the sixth form as his prefects, and they would be your house captains and games captains. We've seen the introduction of inter-house competitions, so Gryffindor would have been playing Slytherin at Quidditch now. So you can see we're much more organised now. We've got the promotion of the sport by the headmasters and the masters, because they tried to develop this notion of muscular Christianity, the belief that manliness is next to godliness, and that you're producing good Christian gentlemen. And the boys would therefore demonstrate these values and ethics, positive values and ethics in the sports they were pursuing. Towards the end of the 19th century then, in terms of organisation, the sports now had standardised rules. We talked about how the boys will have left these schools, Eton and Harrow and Charterhouse, and they will all have gone to Oxbridge, or a large number of them have gone to Oxbridge. They then will have got there and gone, well, how are we going to play? We have to set one set of rules. They left the schools, they've set up the NGBs that we talked about in post-industrial Britain. So the sports in stage 3 here, the end of the 19th century, are going to look like the sports you've studied in post-industrial Britain. So the standardised set of rules, that means now we're not just playing inter-house matches, but we're playing inter-school matches. We had the introduction of sports days. They were a good way to promote the schools. They were supported by the trustees of the schools. The sports were organised not just by the boys, for the boys now, but we had the sixth form boys, prefects we talked about, but we also had master and headmaster support. We had the introduction of Oxbridge Blues. Now remember, to be an Oxbridge Blue, you had to represent Oxford or Cambridge in a varsity match against the university. So you were therefore seen to be a really talented sports performer. So you can see lots of support for sport here, and then Masters supported it. They had compulsory games afternoons. I haven't put that down there, but I should have done. Compulsory games afternoons. And it was all supported here by the masters and the headmasters because they believed in its ability to develop character for the boys and desirable qualities and values that we'll have a look at a little bit later. Okay, so promotion of ethics. Well, you can see in stage 1 here at the start of the 19th century, there was no promotion of ethics. So the sports were violent, they were disorganised, and the boys weren't demonstrating really desirable qualities here. When we get to the mid to late 19th century, we've seen the introduction or promotion of muscular Christianity. Sport was a way the boys channeling their energy. Said God made you big and strong, and you would honour him with your sporting ability. Sport was also used to promote desirable values. They believed if you could lead a team on the playing field, you could lead a regiment into battle. That on the sports fields of Eton and Harrow and Rugby, these young men would develop the qualities to run the empire. Remember, these young men went out to our top kind of roles in society. They were our army officers, they were our clergymen and priests, they were our masters, they were our industrialists, they were our politicians. So if you believe that sport develops desirable qualities such as sportsmanship, honesty, loyalty, you were loyal first to your house, then your school, then your country. Fair play, you would do things like walking, cricket. Teamwork, that you worked hard in the pursuit of team goals, that you would develop leadership skills, endeavour, and the big one is athleticism. You've got to know that definition of athleticism. That would be a nice, easy definition to be on the exam. The belief that moral integrity, in demonstrating moral integrity, doing the right thing, and physical endeavour, trying hard. So examples of physical endeavour, you might use training or competing when injured. You might talk about how the boys would continue to play to the whistle even if they were losing. Moral integrity, we talked about walking in cricket, helping an opponent off the ground, anything like that. Okay. Cult of athleticism then. Oh, well, we've just done it. No, nice and easy. There's no cult of athleticism in the start of the 19th century, and in the late 19th century, we obviously seen the value of athleticism develop. Value of athleticism? Or the notion of athleticism. And the boys obviously believed in that and therefore felt like sport and involvement and participation was incredibly valuable to them. And therefore, when they left their schools, they wanted to spread it across the empire, across society at large. They wanted to continue their own involvement as well. So we talked earlier, didn't we, about how they set up their own teams and leagues. They promoted sports amongst the lower classes. They spread it to the soldiers as army officers, to the countries as part of the British that were part of the British Empire. And the spread and export of games and the games ethic then. Girls' schools had slower development of athleticism. They believed that women were physically inferior. However, there was increased education of females throughout the 19th century. We've got schools like Cheltenham School for Girls, and we talked in a previous video of post-industrial Britain about how females were taking part in things like lacrosse, hockey, lawn tennis, and later on we see the introduction of some sports like netball. And we also see the introduction of ladies' PE training colleges. Mercer that PE teaching was a female, or considered to be a female profession at the start at least. And how did if you get a question that says how did the public schools help with the spread and growth and development of sport, we can talk about how the boys went to universities. With the University of Melton Park, they codified sport, they set up national governing bodies, they organised leagues and competitions, they set up clubs, teams, they ran their own teams. They also helped with things like industrial patronage, they paid for facilities, for factory workers. But they also spread it across the empire as priests, promoting muscular Christianity and athleticism to the congregation. They developed church teams like Everton and youth groups to participate in sport, as industrialists, as army officers, we discussed all of them. Masters, they went back into the schools and helped with the promotion of sport then to the boys. They're as amateur performers themselves. And you can also say as parents. As parents, they also often sent their own children to public schools and promoted the value of sport. Okay, that's it, really quick on the public schools.